forecasted storm. If you can't stay home and you evacuate, your next option should be to go to a friend or family's home that is outside of the evacuation area and is structurally sound to withstand the storm. Third option would be go to a hotel. They're much more comfortable than our evacuation centers. Fourth option would be to go to one of our evacuation centers. Sarasota County has 12 evacuation centers. Those can be found on their website.
Have you heard of the North Report app? North Report is a tool used to report non-emergency issues to City Hall. The app is built to be easy for anyone to use on the go. When you see an issue, it takes less than a minute to report the issue on the app. First, pull up the app and click Report Issue. Then, click Camera and take a picture of the issue or get the image from your photo gallery. After that, the app uses geolocation to pinpoint your exact location. Then, you choose the type of issue from the list provided. You'll finish up by including a brief description of the issue, such as where it is, what it looks like, and any other important information that will help city staff correct the issue. Then when you're done, you hit Submit, and you're ready to go. It is that simple. North Report, a simple and valuable way for you to build a stronger community. At the City of Northport, we are here to serve you, and there are many ways to connect with us. You will always find friendly faces when you come to City Hall. When you first walk in, you will see our Customer Care Center. The Care Center helps customers who call into the city to get answers they need in a timely fashion. Our Care Center has helped more than 10,000 customers last month alone. Next to the call center, you will find the self-service kiosk for code enforcement and building divisions. Using the QR code or by visiting our website, you can schedule your appointments with ease. Have you checked out our website? From employment opportunities to building codes, you can find just about anything using the search bar. Finally, you can download the North Report app and submit non-emergency issues to City Hall in less than a minute. The app has helped correct more than 12,000 issues across the city. No matter the method you choose, the city is here for you. And together, we will build a stronger community.
Why do we flood? During significant rain events, Northport nearly always floods in certain areas of the city. This is thanks to the locally named Myakkahatchee Creek, also known as the Big Slough Watershed. The 195 square mile drainage area flows through DeSoto, Manatee, and Sarasota counties, then through our city to exit at Charlotte Harbor. As the city of Northport is located at the low end of the Big Slough watershed drainage system, the city's current flooding and water quality conditions are attributed not only to the city's growth, but also to upstream runoff in the DeSoto, Manatee, and Sarasota County portions of the Big Slough. During significant rain events, ponding can also occur. Ponding occurs in low-lying areas that are characterized by poorly drained or supersaturated soils. With back-to-back rainfall events, the ground is totally saturated, which increases the runoff during a storm. The city works hard to maintain its stormwater conveyance system, which is comprised of roadside swales draining into 79 miles of named waterways and 132 miles of retention ditches that interconnect with each other and with the Myakkahatchee Creek. There are 64 water control structures, of which 23 are gated water control structures, 5 are gated drop structures, 28 are fixed weir structures, and 8 are drop structures. The control elevations of these structures are designed so that water is retained in the waterways in a step-down elevation system configuration. This means the water levels in the waterway segments between structures progressively decrease in elevation from north to south and from east to west. This system configuration allows both retention of stormwater runoff for water quality treatment and storage for potable water use. In preparation for a storm, the gates are opened as needed to convey floodwaters. The city has an ongoing program to inspect and replace old corroded structures. Since 2006, 13 of the high priority structures have been replaced or rehabilitated. The city also has a program to clear the ditches of sediment deposits that have accumulated over time and clear fallen trees and debris in the Myakkahatchee Creek. This also helps restore the flow capacity of the waterways. Long story short, Northport is prone to flooding, but the city works hard to maintain conveyance channels, water control structures, and procedures put in place to lessen the impact. When there is a hurricane or significant rain event, the city gets into response and recovery mode quickly after. Please stay safe out there.
Oh, you're swimming in the pool?
Oh my gosh, this is gonna be great!
Morning, everyone. It's good to see you all here. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2023. It is 10 a.m. We are in City Chambers, and I call the City Commission regular meeting to order. Commissioners present are Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Stokes, myself, Mayor Langdon, Vice Mayor White, and Commissioner Emmerich. There is a quorum for this meeting. Also present are City Manager Fletcher, City Attorney Slayton, City Clerk Faust, Assistant City Clerk Jimenez, Deputy Chief Morales, and Fire Chief Titus. Vice
Chief Garrison.
Oh, there was a switch when I checked. Let me correct that. Chief Garrison is here, not Deputy Chief Morales, who I saw earlier. Okay, Vice Mayor, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody, I'm looking for a motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda as presented, made by Commissioner Emmerich, seconded by Commissioner Stokes. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote. And that motion passes 5-0. City Clerk, do we have any online public comment? Any in-house? Then let's move on to announcements. Item number 23-0446. City Clerk, would you read the announcements into the record, please?
The current vacancies for the following boards and committees include the Art Advisory Board, Audit Selection Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizen Tax Oversight Committee, Environmental Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Veterans Park Advisory Committee, and Zoning Board of Appeals. One resident of Northport to serve on the Citizen Advisory Committee, Citizens Oversight Committee for School Facility Planning. If anyone would like more information, please see the city clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. Let's move on to the consent agenda. City Manager, have any items been pulled for discussion?
Yes, ma'am. One item, 4G, which is 23-1339.
Oh, 1339, okay, G. And who pulled that?
Commissioner McDowell.
City Clerk, do we have any public comment on this agenda item? Then I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion, Mayor. I move to approve the items in the consent agenda, pulling item G 23-1339 for discussion.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the items in the consent agenda, pulling item G 23-1339. Commissioner Emmerich is our motion maker. Commissioner McDowell is our seconder. If there's nothing to that, let's vote, please. And that motion passes 5-0. Commissioner McDowell, would you like to comment on your item?
Yeah, so yesterday when I was preparing for this meeting, I was researching about the neighborhood expansion, trying to understand a couple of, when I was doing my research yesterday and getting a better understanding and researching about this neighborhood expansion change order, some of the math didn't add up. I requested a meeting with the city manager first thing this morning, and I am grateful that I was accommodated by Assistant City Manager Yarborough and the utilities team. But I do have some lingering questions regarding the change order number 2 with the math. I'm just not understanding how we are exceeding the $500,000 based on the form that's in the backup material, which is showing a total of over $684,000. It seems a little bit more complex than what can be addressed in a very short meeting prior to this commission meeting. So maybe I can get a better understanding, but at this time I will be voting against it just because it's not adding up. And I appreciate everybody's efforts in trying to explain it to me on the fly with such a short amount of time. But I just cannot approve it because state statute clearly says it cannot exceed $500,000. And this change order does show that it is above and beyond that. So thank you, city manager and the team.
You're welcome. And as we are not going to try and labor the point, we just want to point out, I believe that you're going to talk about the contract and the different contract and the $500,000 threshold. So go right ahead.
Good morning. Irina Kucharenko. I'm Assistant Finance Director. Speak up.
And into the
Assistant Finance Director, Irina Kucharenko. So this specific work assignment is not exceeding the $500,000 for this project. There are other projects out there that the city is doing, and that's the total, the 684 that you're seeing.
Yes, and if you look at the procurement of personal property services statute 287.055, it states for each individual study under the contract does not exceed $500,000. And the neighborhood expansion project is a work assignment all of its own, and it does not exceed $500,000. Thank you.
And I appreciate that further explanation, but I'm looking at the paperwork and it's showing this project, this work assignment, and this dollar amount of $684,000. So I understand there's a bigger conversation. Maybe it's just the form itself that is screwy. I don't know, but because it's not clear and concise, I just can't in conscience approve it.
I believe purchasing as a department, we have to track it citywide. for each vendor. And so that's the purpose of that first page.
But it's all related to the change order for this project. So again, probably the form is screwy. Thank you.
I'm looking for a motion.
I had a question, Mayor.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Maybe you shouldn't have run away so fast.
Simple question, city manager should be able to answer this. So there's multiple projects out there with Kenley Horn that equals the 684,000 or whatever the number was, over the 500,000. So there's multiple projects lumped into one big basket.
Correct, at least 4.
Okay, that's all. I just want a clarification, that's all.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Commissioner. A motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I move to approve consent agenda item G 23-1339 to approve the change order number 2 to work assignment number 2021-09.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve change order number 2 to work assignment number 2021-09 for an additional amount of $7,054. Our motion maker is Vice Mayor White. Our seconder is Commissioner Emmerich. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote, please. And that motion passes 4-1, I'm assuming for reasons stated, Commissioner?
I'm not against the change order. I'm just paperwork.
Great, then let's move on to public hearings. Petition number DMA-23-001. This is a quasi judicial hearing. City Clerk, would you read the petition and swear in those wishing to provide testimony, please?
Consideration of petition number DMA 23-001, the Woodlands Phase 2 Development Master Plan Amendment. Can everyone wishing to provide testimony please stand and raise your right hand? You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so help you God.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, do you have any ex parte communications to report? Commissioner Emmerich?
I do not.
Vice Mayor White?
No, I don't.
I don't have any.
Nothing for me.
And Commissioner McDowell?
Yes, I did request a copy of the traffic impact study, which was provided to me yesterday. I sent the emails to the city clerk for the record.
Is that it, Commissioner?
That's it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk, do we have any agreed parties for this matter? Then let's move on to presentations. Applicant, you have 20 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Commissioners. My name is Todd Mathis. I'm here representing Benderson Development, and I have been sworn. I want to start off just by thanking your staff for processing the application. We always appreciate your staff, but we particularly appreciate the staff shortage that planning is experiencing, and they were helpful in getting us to this hearing. So thank you for that, and thank them for that. I'm joined by my project team. Becca Bond is our transportation engineer. Clint Kuffel is our civil engineer, and our environmental consultant is Matt Miller. They're here with us to answer any questions and to help in our presentation if needed this morning. The project is generally located at the top of the page. As you know, Commissioners, is I-75 running east-west at this location in Toledo Blade Boulevard. So we're generally located at the southeast quadrant of I-75 in Toledo Blade. The two large rooftops that you see are phase 1 of this project that were constructed and finished just before the hurricane last year and are now occupied. We're located in Activity Center 4 and are part of the Panacea DRI. As I mentioned, you previously approved 288,510 square feet of flex warehouse, light industrial, and office space, as well as 2 waivers which related to the parking ratio and parking configuration required by your code. What we actually built was a little less than that, about 285,000 square feet of flex warehouse, light industrial space in the 2 buildings I showed you previously, along with the associated stormwater and infrastructure. This amendment requests that we go up to, our request was 533,924 feet of warehouse, including 20,000 feet of office space and 26,000 feet of commercial space that will sit on 2 pads at the corner of Plantation and Toledo, between basically Plantation and the existing warehouse buildings. So it's 6 structures, and actually, as we worked through it, that's what we applied for. The total on our DMA amendment plans that are in your package is 561,800 square feet. So again, commissioners, the image on the left side of the screen is sort of a zoomed in version of the two rooftops and the employers in that building. A little hard to see on this image given the scale of the project. But we'll be building buildings north of that and south of that. And our intent is to get those buildings started as soon as possible. We've submitted concurrently and have been in review in the MAS process because we do have folks lined up who would like to be in these buildings. So the image on the right side of your screen just delineates between phase one, the portion already approved in green, and the phase two, which is in brown, north and south of the site. We have a handful of modification requests tied to signage, but before I specifically address signs, what I want to say is, and this is sort of a challenging thing to communicate in a project like this, but I think what we're trying to say, commissioners, is we want to ensure that the scale and character of the project, including the signs, are right. Something can be the right scale but out of character and it's not going to look right. Something could be the right character but out of scale and it's still not going to look right. So we're trying to achieve the right scale and character in our modification requests for the project. This is just a Google Earth image of the building when it was first constructed, before it was opened, before there was tenants in the space. And you know, I think we'd give ourselves, to be frank, like a B, maybe a B- on this building in the end. Challenging building given its scale to reconcile with the architectural requirements imposed in Activity Center 4. We did our best. It conformed to what's required. But what we intend to do is to go back and make modifications to this building and then really enhance the future buildings north and south of it so that they are all in the same character. It's an enhanced character. And that will lead me to the sign modification requests in a moment. So what we're going to do to that building, this is the existing tenant, Town and Country. We're just going to break up the facade and add some architectural elements to change the repetitive nature of those buildings. Those buildings are very long, right? They're a quarter mile long, 1,000+ feet. They have a lot of scale to them. So we're going to make some changes to the existing building that fronts Toledo Blade. The buildings which face the woods and wetlands that no one ever sees, we're going to maintain those buildings as is. They're not so forward facing, but we're going to improve the building. And then the buildings north and south of it will pick up on that theme that we make changes to the existing building and will really change that profile. That's the roll plot of the building on the south. We'll change the profile, we think, for the better, to kind of break up the significance and scale of those buildings with an enhanced architectural theme across the front of the building. So with that said, our modification requests start with a master sign plan request, which we've presented. It's a progression of signs as you enter the project. The wall sign on the bottom left, followed by the ground sign in the middle, and the directory as you enter the project site. So we've designed these signs to be in character with the buildings that you just saw, as enhanced and changed, and in scale to the buildings and in scale to the activity occurring within the buildings. We have a lot of employment. We have a fair amount of truck traffic, car traffic. You know, we want to be sure that people can see the signs, they know where they are, that these buildings don't look out of proportion, these signs don't look out of proportion with the buildings themselves. So that's basically our first modification request, is for approval of a master sign plan really designed around scale and character of the buildings. Our second modification request has to do with the area and height of the directories themselves. As you enter the project, those directories are going to communicate where a truck or car or customer or employee should travel to. These are multi-tenant buildings, and some tenants take a lot of space in buildings, some tenants take a little bit of space in buildings, and we need people as they're driving into the project to be able to see, read, and know where they're traveling to. So our second modification request is to change the area of directories so that they are readable and they are in scale and character to the buildings and the other signs, that progression of signs, the wall sign to the ground sign to the directory. Our third modification request, we withdrew. So I think that's sort of a non-event. It's in your staff report. We withdrew that request, and that's totally fine with us. The next set of modification requests are really related to building signage. So these images on the left are from existing warehouse, similar projects we've constructed elsewhere in Manatee County, just north of the river in Ellenton and off of 301. And it's It's really where we come up with what we think the right size of sign on a tenant space, what the right mix is. You could say it's a little subjective. We think it balances the facade of the building with the sign. So if you've ever seen those buildings in person, that's kind of the best way to know what to expect here in terms of the buildings. But I will go into a little more detail in a moment. So all of the next three modification requests have to do with those signs. So the image on the left is the conforming building sign area, and the image on the right would be the modified building sign area for this particular tenant. Again, we think that sign should fill some amount of that free space above the main door of that tenant. It should be visible from the parking lot, but not overwhelming. So we're trying to achieve the right scale and character. That area formula has worked for us in a lot of places, including at Cocoa Plum Village Shops. It's the same basic area formula. 2 square feet per linear foot seems to match buildings very well. So this is a multi-tenant section of the building. Again, the sign on the top would be the existing sign allowance. The signs on the bottom would be the modified sign allowance. Again, just providing building signage that sort of matches the scale of the building without being overwhelming. So to wrap up this part of the presentation, commissioners, we're pursuing appropriate entitled land uses within Activity Center 4 in the Panacea DRI. These these land uses have the potential for high quality jobs consistent with future land use goal 1 and economic development policy 1.1.2. We're proposing a mix of uses, which is consistent with FLU policy 2.4.1. And our waivers, again, focus on the right scale and character for the buildings. Your staff report also went into great detail on comp plan consistency and those things, and we agree with everything in your staff report. Commissioners, I'm prepared, and we have time left to focus on transportation. Commissioner McDowell, I heard you ask that question, so we could give you a presentation on transportation if you'd prefer, or we could respond to questions if it's a more specific issue. But what I would say generally is that we analyzed more traffic than the project actually is proposing. So we did that out of an abundance of caution in part, and in part because we start that analysis at the beginning of a project, and as we go through comments and responses and we work on details, the project became more narrow and more specific and defined. So we have a transportation analysis which sort of covers a worst case scenario. The actual project and the DMA that you would be approving, should you approve it, is less trips, is a little tighter of a project as a result of that iterative process. So we think it's a robust and clear and conservative analysis. But we can get into the details on that presentation if you prefer, or we can go to questions. I think I will turn it over to questions and cede my time, and we can get into a presentation format if we need to. Thank you.
Okay, staff.
Good morning, Carl Benj, Planning and Zoning Division. I have been sworn. So today we're going to talk about DMA 23001, the Woodlands Phase 2 Development Master Plan Amendment. The applicant, Clint Cuffle. The property owner is Huntington National Real Estate Investments, LLC, Will Ridge Associates, LLC, Panacea Gulf Coast Investments, LLC, and Buffalo Northport Association, LLC. The amendment to construct an additional 533,924 square feet of flex warehouse light industrial space, including 19,260 square feet of office space and 26,000 square feet of commercial space. Property size is approximately 133 acres. So a brief history, the Woodlands Phase 1 was approved by City Commission on December 10th, 2019, and it permitted approximately 288,510 square feet of flex warehouse and light industrial and office space. However, only 285,000 square feet was actually built. So as mentioned before, the applicant is seeking 5 modification requests. The staff report does identify 6. However, the applicant has withdrawn waiver 3 in the staff report, and that waiver has been taken from this presentation. So the first waiver is from the Activity Center style and design of signs. There's an example in the top left of the Activity Center requirement, and then the example in the bottom right of what the applicant is proposing. Per ULDC 53118B3, a modification of type, size, and location is allowed, so staff can support this waiver. The second waiver is to allow an increase in size, height, and location of the directional sign. Again, 53118B3 does allow for a modification to the type, size, and location, so staff can support this request. Waiver 3 is in the way the area of the signs are calculated. Again, they can modify the size, so staff can support this waiver. Waiver 4 is to allow a locally accepted formula to be used for calculating the signs as the applicant presented in the previous presentation. And again, for ULDC 53118B, a modification to the size is allowed, so staff can support this waiver. The fifth waiver is to allow more than one secondary Class A sign, provided that each sign does not exceed the maximum sign area, and to not let those secondary Class A signs seen by the public right-of-way or off-site be exempt from the sign calculation. Again, staff sees that if these aren't viewed from the road, we can back this, we can support this waiver. So back to the highlight of the project. Again, it's around 133 acres, and the amendment is to construct an additional 533,924 square feet of flex warehouse, light industrial space, including 19,260 square feet of office space and 26,000 square feet of commercial space. Here's the proposed site plan as mentioned by the applicant. The green is what is phase 1, which is already existing, and the brown is phase 2, which is what is being proposed. Compliance with the comprehensive plan and Unified Land Development Code, the petition and ordinance was reviewed and approved by staff for compliance with the comprehensive plan, future land use element goal 1, figure 1, policy 2.4.1, policy 3.1, policy 9.4, the economic development element policy 1.1.2, and policy 4.1.2. Staff petition was reviewed and approved by staff for conformance with the Unified Land Development Code, sections 53103, 53106, 53107, 53109, 53110, and 53113. This was presented before PZAB on October 5th, and the motion was carried unanimous by vote excluding waiver number 3. If you guys have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm not seeing any questions, so let's move on to rebuttal. Applicant?
Mayor. I had questions. I didn't know we were at question time.
Okay, well, should we wait? Let's wait. Yeah, let's wait. Sorry, Mr. Mathis, we're going to proceed with the rebuttals, and then we'll call you back up for questions later. Thank you.
No problem, Commissioners. I appreciate it. I really have no rebuttal. Hopefully, we've communicated to you what our intent here is, which is to take what we hope has been a nice start of a project for the city and make it a great project for the city. We did analyze and initially apply for more than what the total is of what we're actually proposing to do, which is reflected in the actual DMA amendment plans that you would be approving. And we have narrowed in very specifically on what that, at least the flex warehouse pieces of that project would look like. Are we going to build 26,000 feet of commercial? We might build a little less. We'll see, but that would give us the flexibility to go through the process from here forward and do that. So we appreciate your support if you can give it to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Staff?
We have nothing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. City Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? Now I will open up the floor to commission questions. Commissioner McDowell.
Yes, ma'am. My first big question, and I don't know if this is a staff question or a city attorney question. We approved a DMP in December of 2019. That project is complete, it's done, but now we're doing a DMA, which is amending the DMP, which is done and complete. Why is this an amendment instead of its own DMP? It's outside the scope of the initial project area too.
Commissioner, I don't mind trying to take it, but I'm not a DMA, DMP expert. The projects are linked in terms of access of roads, stormwater, and some of the square footage that we did not build will be tied to the remainder of the project. So there is a lot of overlap here, and it is all within the same activity center and within the Panacea DRI entitlement. So that is typically been the direction given to us as the applicant. That's the best answer I can give you as the applicant. with respect to that question.
Did staff want to weigh in since it's okay. So I'll let you guys converse and I'll move on to my next set of questions. In the map where we have the 8,000 commercial, I see dots. I assume that's a gas station, but I don't like assuming.
That is what we laid out, was a gas station.
It is a gas station,
Yes.
okay. In the neighborhood meeting notes, it mentioned a citizen brought up residential property. And I didn't go to that meeting, so I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but I'm not seeing anything residential on here. Where did that come from that citizen? Do you know?
I do. The Woodlands CDD members a number of them were present. This commission recently approved an apartment project on Panacea Boulevard. Most of those folks showed up at the workshop thinking it was about the apartments or wanting to know about the apartments, even if they knew what this project was about. And so a lot of our discussion was about the residential neighbor. And I'm sure that you guys had a better attended public hearing for that project than this project. That's what that was about.
Thank you for that clarification. I was like, am I missing something? And this will be a staff question. I'm trying to stick to yours.
Thank you.
Okay, so going to the traffic impact. So I am seeing a lot of configurations for new access points, left turn lanes and stuff. Who is going to be responsible for installing the left turn lane on Plantation and Panacea as noted on these maps?
Absolutely. So my name is Becca Bond, transportation engineer with Kimley Horn, working for the applicant, and I have been sworn. That extension of the turn lane at the intersection you're speaking of is going to be completed by the applicant. It is part of the site plan and is shown as improvements in those in the package that was provided by Clint Couple with WRA.
Okay.
And I'll just add one detail which may be relevant. We have been in communication with the Woodland CDD and the manager, Mark Vega. There's some landscape that we're going to move and enhance in that location for them. You know, they still have the landscape enhancement obligations on Panacea. So we have coordinated those tree moves and things already.
Excellent. There's an opening close to where the potential gas station is going. It says that they're going to be extending and they're going to extend and close the median and make a new opening. Is that also going to be the applicant's responsibility?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just south of the existing industrial park, there's an entrance. And I travel Toledo Blade all the time, but I just never paid attention if you're traveling south on Toledo Blade, if you can turn left into that entrance, or is it a right in, right out right now?
So I believe that you're discussing node 2. I'm not sure if you can see the presentation.
Yes.
There we go. Right now it's an existing right in, right out, so no southbound left.
So is there going to be a southbound left?
In the current plans, it is not shown that way. Our traffic impact analysis analyzed both options, with an opening and without an opening.
Okay. So will there be a dedicated left turn lane for semis at where, coming south further on Toledo Blade where Plantation is, to turn left?
Yes, I believe there's an existing left turn lane there.
All right. The gas station, that little where 3 is on your map, is that going to be enough room? I would assume your gas station is going to accommodate semis. That would just make logical sense. Is there really technically enough room for semis to turn right onto that little road off of Panacea and then turn right again into that gas station? Or turn left out of the gas station?
Just for clarification, the gas station is at the corner of Plantation and Toledo.
Out parcel.
So out parcel 1.
I'm sorry, I said
Yep.
Panacea.
No, I just wanted to be sure.
I
Yeah,
always get
I wanted
those
to be sure.
streets mixed up. I am so sorry.
I get north and south, east and west mixed up here because that's 75.
Yeah, so just south of Plantation where the gas station is going, is that going to be enough room for the semis to be able to turn right in there and then turn right to go into the gas station?
Now, I think, yeah, go ahead, Clint.
Thank you, Clint Cuffle, with WRA. I'm the civil engineer on the project. So what you see are number 3. Actually, trucks and semis use that access point right now to go to the existing phase 1 facility. What you don't see is the bottom half of this gas station right now.
And
In
the
order to
entrance
take,
is down further.
right, the major truck entrance would be down further off the screen. And when they leave the site, they would actually go out the eastern access and go left back
Oh.
to Toledo Blade.
To this entrance further, okay.
See what I'm saying?
All
So,
right.
because the semi can't come out 3 and go right and make a U-turn. Okay, so that's why we have that second access to the east.
Okay.
That is a full access, so they can make the left movement, go back out to Toledo Blade,
Excellent.
westbound.
Thank you so much for those clarifications. I see staff is back for my first question. And I just have one more if you want me to just finish up.
Yeah,
Carl
you have
Bench.
another minute or so.
Planning and zoning, I have been sworn. So yes, so the original DMP was called the Woodlands Phase 1. So it was always assumed that it would come back and be amended to include Phase 2. And both the DMA process and the DMP process have the same advertising, neighborhood meeting, and public meeting requirements. So we're still checking all the boxes, but it was always assumed that a DMA would come back to finish Phase 2.
Yeah. And when I saw the phase 1, I just assumed it was within the boundaries of DMP phase 1, not extended out. That's what prompted the question. So thank you for that. My last question. In the DMP, there were waivers for parking that were approved. Do those waivers automatically carry over to this
continue.
DMA, or do we have to restate that you need the waivers for this DMA?
So my understanding, they will continue with the DMP. I'll double check on that to make sure.
I would appreciate that. And Mayor, I believe that is all of my questions pending what I hear from, oh, one more. The great big pond that you guys show is existing, it's like off of this great big pond, it's showing as existing, but when we did the initial DMP, it was not in the DMP and part of that approval. When did that happen?
Oh, we did excavate that pond with the construction of this phase, and it was approved as part of the MAS.
Oh, during MAS time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is all, the mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Carl Benj, yes, the original DMP conditions will stay unless they ask for modifications from them, which they did not.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up, Commissioner Stokes.
I don't have any questions. I'd just like to say that Phase 1's beautiful. It's a great addition to the city. I am delighted to see Phase 2 coming our way. Keep up the good work. This is a great addition to our city. It's going to bring a lot of new jobs, so kudos to you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Vice Mayor White.
Yes, I don't have any questions either, just a comment about the sign modifications. I'm really glad to see that, in fact. I've had experiences going into industrial parks and can't find places just because signage was too small, or they just had the directory sign with a unit number and you can't see the unit number. So this definitely will make it easier for people to find where they're going. So thank you for that.
I don't have any questions either. It's just, it does my heart great whenever I see commercial come into this city. So thank you. I love the initial project and I'm looking forward to seeing the expansion. It's terrific. Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, so since my questions are finished, I wanted to also make a comment. This is huge for the city of Northport, and Benderson has been a good partner with our city and brought a lot of really great things to our city, from the Cocoa Plum to the first industrial park to this new expansion. I wish you guys all the best, and I'm glad that I can support this new addition to our city. So thank you.
Let's move on then to closing arguments. Staff.
We have nothing further. Thank you.
Great. Applicant?
Appreciate all of the gracious remarks. I'm going to let you guys grade our homework from now on rather than ourselves. But aside from that, we appreciate it. We look forward to moving this project forward. And your city manager keeps reminding me to get to our other intersection there. So we're going to work on it after this one. We appreciate it.
Great, thank you. I'm closing this public hearing and requesting a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Give me one moment, please. I'm looking for something in the staff report. All right, I'll make a motion to approve DMA 23-01 as presented based on the competent substantial evidence. The development master plan amendment complies with the Unified Land Development Code with the conditions outlined in the staff report numbers 1 through 11, and the waivers 1 through 6 as presented, removing waiver number 3 at the applicant's request.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to do all that. Assistant City Clerk, do you want to read that back to us?
A motion was made by Commissioner McDowell to approve petition number DMA-23-001 as presented and find that based on the competent substantial evidence, the development master plan complies with the Unified Land Development Code with the conditions outlined in staff reports numbers 1 through 11 and waivers 1 through 6 as presented, removing waiver number 3 as the applicant's request.
That sounds perfect. Do I hear a second?
The only correction was it's the development master plan amendment complies with the Unified Land Development Code.
Have that? Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve petition number DMA 23001 as presented and find that based on the competent substantial evidence, the development master plan complies with the Unified Development Code, approving waivers 1 through 6, removing number 3 at the applicant's request, and with all 11 conditions identified in the staff report. Our motion maker was Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor White.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything to that?
I think you kind of twisted things. If we could stick with the motion that
Would you repeat
recording
the
secretary
motion,
stated, please?
Let's hear it one more time and then we'll vote.
A motion was made by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor White to approve petition number DMA-23-001 as presented and find that based on the competent substantial evidence, the development master plan complies with the Unified Land Development Code with the conditions outlined in the staff report numbers 1 through 11 and waivers numbers 1 through 6 as presented, removing waivers number 3 as at the applicant's request.
And again, it's the development master plan amendment complies with the Unified Land Development Code.
Amendment.
Because that's what we're approving is the amendment. Everything else is perfect.
Let's vote, please. And that motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Moving on to ordinances. Ordinance number 2023-15. I'll need a motion to direct the city clerk to read this item by title only.
Move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to direct city clerk to read the ordinance by title only, made by Commissioner Stokes, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote, please. That motion passes 5-0. Go ahead, city clerk.
Ordinance number 2023-15, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida related to the maximum age at which police officers' pension plan members must begin to receive distributions pursuant to recent changes to the Internal Revenue Code and other revisions, amending the Code of the City of Northport, Florida by amending provisions of Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 5, Police Officers' Pensions, providing for findings, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Manager, this is your item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This ordinance makes various changes to the police pension plan required by changes to the IRS tax code, as well as some other changes requested by the PBA. For the plan actuary, these changes have no financial impact to the plan. We're happy to answer any questions, but we ask that you approve the ordinance.
Opening up the floor to commission questions. Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, I just want some clarification, because at line 138, it says, as defined in section 401 of this code. I would assume that's the IRS code, but then when you go to line 287, it says, subject to the maximum pension limitations set forth in section 2-269 of this code. I would assume that's the city code, but because the word "this code" is used interchangeably with different references, I just want to make sure that we are being crystal clear which code we are referencing. Maybe we can just have staff include IRS code or city code to remove the ambiguity.
So this code is a defined term used throughout the city code. Any reference using that term should be to the city code. If there's a misplaced reference somewhere else, then that code should be properly identified.
Yeah, and if I may, there are a couple places where it says this code, but it looks like it's referring to the IRS code. If you look at line 138.
City Manager, might we get some clarification from staff on those couple of items?
We can look at that before second reading, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you, City
Line
Attorney.
51 also says of the code. I'm not sure, again, IRS or city. So if we could just have them put their eyes on it between now and second reading to ensure which code is being referenced, I would be grateful.
Yes, we've got that. I'm not seeing any other lights on. City Clerk, is there any public comment to this item? And I'm closing this public hearing and requesting a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll make a motion to continue ordinance number 2023-15 to second reading on October 24th with staff reviewing the language of the code and this code referenced throughout the ordinance.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner McDowell and seconded by Vice Mayor White to continue ordinance number 2023-15 to second reading on October 24th, 2023, with a staff review of this and the code references for clarification throughout the document. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote. And that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to ordinance number 2023-28. I'm going to need a motion to direct City Clerk to read by title only.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion on the floor to request, to direct City Clerk to read this item by title only. Our motion maker is Commissioner Stokes, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. Let's vote. And that motion passes 5-0. Go ahead, City Clerk.
Ordinance number 2023-28, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, providing for the levy and collection of a public service tax on the purchase of electricity within the city, providing for findings, providing for exemptions, providing for record keeping, providing for violations and penalties, providing for enforcement, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. City Manager, this one's yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On September 21st of this year, during the Commission's special meeting, the Commission adopted resolution number 2023-R59, which is the final non-district budget for fiscal year 23-24. This final budget included an increase to a 10% electric public service tax on April 1st, 2024. We ask that you approve the ordinance number 2023-28 on first reading and move to second reading on October 24th, 2023. The ordinance provides for levy and collection of the public service electricity tax within the city. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, City Manager. I'm opening up the floor to commission questions. I'm not seeing any, so City Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? We do not. Then I'm closing this public hearing and requesting a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I move to continue ordinance number 2023-28 to second reading on October 24th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Vice Mayor White and seconded by Commissioner Stokes to continue ordinance number 2023-28 to second reading on October 24th. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote. And that motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting. Do you care to comment, Commissioner?
During the budget cycle, I expressed concern about this increase in utility tax to our residents and businesses, and for that reason, I am not approving this either.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to resolutions. Resolution number 2023-R-72. This is a quasi judicial hearing. City Clerk, would you read this resolution by title only? And
Wait, you skipped one.
did I? Which one?
63.
The annual grant application.
Mine has G.
In the agenda,
70.
resolution number 2023-R63
They're
is
just out of
item
order.
D.
I have 72 coming first.
Agenda has 63.
It was updated.
It was updated. 72 is first.
Okay, let's
When did that get
proceed
updated?
It was
ahead.
quasi.
City Clerk, would you read this resolution by
When did that
title
change?
only and swear in those wishing to give testimony?
Yes, ma'am. Resolution number 2023-R-72, a resolution of the
This
City
change.
Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, vacating utility and drainage easements for Lot 13 Island Walk Phase 1D, a partial replat subdivision, providing for findings, providing for recording, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Swearing in.
Can everyone wishing to provide testimony please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you. As you folks are coming down, let me ask for any ex parte communications. Commissioner McDowell?
None.
Commissioner Stokes?
None.
None for me, Vice Mayor?
None.
Commissioner Emmerich?
None.
Okay. City Clerk, any aggrieved parties to this matter? Then let's move on to presentations. Applicant, you are up. Okay, then we will move on to staff.
Good morning, David Brown, Planning and Zoning, and I have been sworn. Good morning. Today, we're here to talk about, I just want to clarify that this is for a partial vacation of easement. I know that the agenda says it's for a vacation of easement. This is just for a partial vacation of an easement. So we're here to talk about 19291 Corradino Boulevard, vacation of the platted rear easement with resolution number 2023-R-72. This is along with petition number VAC-23-147. The applicant was Jacob Van Duren of Berlin Patent Ebling PLLC. Property owners Larry and Ann Higgins. They're requesting to vacate a portion of the platted rear 30-foot utility easement in order to rectify an encroachment of an existing deck and screen gauge. The location is 19291 Corradino Boulevard, Lot 13, Island Walk at West Villages, Phase 1D, which is a partial replat subdivision. The parcel ID of 0781060013. And the property size is plus or minus 0.18 acres or 7,975 square feet. They're requesting to vacate a portion of the platted rear 30-foot utility easement to rectify an existing encroachment by a deck and screen cage that was approved and closed as of May 11, 2023 through permit number 20-1024. The deck and cage encroach 11.9 feet into the easement as measured at the rear corners. If the request is granted, approximately 224 square feet of the easement will be vacated. The Planning and Zoning Advisory Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the petition on September 26, 2023. The following agencies have reviewed the request to vacate the portion of the platted 30-foot rear easement, utility easement, and through written response have granted their approval. No issues or concerns were raised regarding this request. And I do want to make note that I didn't put it in here, but if it says no response, our form states that they have 10 days to respond. If they do not, it's a no objection. This has been reviewed in compliance with Florida statutes and ULDC Chapter 53 zoning regulations. The vacation of the easement was received and approved by staff for conformance with Florida State Statutes Chapter 177. The vacation of easement was reviewed and approved by staff for conformance with ULDC Chapter 53 zoning regulations. The planning staff recommendations are that we recommend approval of vacation number VAC-23-147 via resolution 2023-R-72.
Do you have any rebuttal to your own presentation?
I do not.
Okay. Then, City Clerk, do we have any public comment for this item? We do not. Then I'm opening up the floor to commission questions. Commissioner McDowell.
Did they put, I would assume it's a lanai, did they put the lanai in after the house was built?
That I am not sure about. I don't have any comments as far as when the house was constructed. I'm going to say yes, most likely.
Does putting on a lanai require permitting and surveying and stuff?
It does.
Curious how this, so is the lanai already constructed?
Yes, it was permitted in 2020, and it was closed out in 2023 after inspections.
When was it found that it was in the easement?
After the storm, because they were coming in to replace the screen, and that's when the easement encroachment was discovered.
And here's why I'm asking these questions. I have a hard time, how much does it cost for a citizen to pay for vacating an easement?
I believe it's $575.
Right. So I don't know how this all came about and what the process was, but it was there. They were replacing what was already there, approved, permitted, inspected and everything. And then when they went to go and put it back in, then they found out that it was in the easement. That to me doesn't seem fair that they have to pay that $500.
Yeah, and I will tell you that with this being in Welland Park, typically their easements are private, so we don't really have say in them. But unfortunately, Island Walk and there's one other subdivision out there that does have public easements. And after reading the Island Walk easement statements on the plat, I've been looking at easement statements for almost 10 years. It was confusing to me. And I can understand why somebody wouldn't be 100% sure whether an easement's private or public. Just if that helps you at all.
We happen to know if these are the original owners or if they're secondary owners?
That I am not sure about.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with the vacation of the easement, but I consciously have a hard time with the $500 fee.
Yeah.
And I know that the commission in the past has waived that fee and refunded it to the citizens, even if it's 100% or 50%, because it's not their fault. It's not 100% on them. There is some responsibility to the city because it was surveyed. It was all done correctly initially. It was just when they went to go replace it that they wound up having to pay that fee.
Yeah.
So I just, in good conscience, it's not correct. It's not right.
Commissioner Stokes.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Commissioner McDowell's sentiments on this. Having some personal experience with this situation. I mean, it appears as if this lanai was added, certainly had to be permitted and approved by the city the first go round. I would assume there was no outstanding concerns on the part of the ARC or the association at Island Walk, or they might be here speaking up. So it appears when the storm knocked out some screens and they hired a contractor to come in and put those screens up, and application for permit was made with the city, somebody stumbled over the fact that, there was an easement issue. And again, I believe, while I'm all for charging fees for services rendered by the city, to force this homeowner to have to cough up $500 or more is just not something I feel good about. So I just want to get on the record about it, but I obviously am good with the vacating of the easement, so.
I'm not seeing any of the lights on. Do you have any closing arguments?
I do not.
Okay, then I'm going to close this public hearing and request a
I'll
motion.
make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead,
I'm
Commissioner.
going to see if it's going to fly. I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution number 2023R-72 and request city manager to work with finance to refund the vacation of easement fee.
We have a motion on the floor to approve resolution number 2023-R-72 as presented, directing city manager to work with finance to refund the vacation of easement fee to the homeowner. Motion maker is Commissioner McDowell. Do I hear a second?
You do. I second
Okay,
that.
seconder is Commissioner Stokes. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote. And that motion passes 4-1. The dissenter is Vice Mayor White. Do you care to comment, Vice Mayor?
Yes, the situation before us was the current situation. We don't know about the specifics about the original permit, why that was missed, who missed it. That's why
The city could.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to resolution.
My light's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I had a question. Apparently, this has happened on more than just one occasion. Is there any way that we can look into it in the future when these come before us, that the fee is not even mandated in the first place as we go to these vacations of easements?
Gotta pay it when they file.
Commissioner, that would require a code amendment.
Yep.
Section 1-22 of the code provides that the commission may refund specifically these types of fees. So you have a process in the code for that, which would support the action that you're talking about in the motion here today. If you want that to be automatic, we would need to do an ordinance with a code amendment.
Okay, well, I would just like maybe city manager to get with staff to allow staff, when people come in, to go ahead and talk about this, that may be an availability to them at the end of the process then. So I just wanted to get that out there for future goals if something were to come up again. That's all.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, and I hear you, Commissioner Emmerich, and I agree that there needs to be a process in place. But I think charging the fee hearing all of the testimony in the quasi judicial process and being able to understand that there was a hiccup in the process along the way gives us as the commission the authority then to go ahead and say, hey, ask these questions, get it on the record, and then ask to refund that money and put it to a vote to the commission. So I hear what you're saying, but I think the process actually kind of works well. As long as everybody remembers if there was a hiccup to see about waiving that fee or refunding that fee.
This item is finished. I do see Commissioner Stokes' light on. If you could keep it very brief,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
I do believe that the process calls for the fee to be paid upon the filing of the request for, vacating. So you're paying it up front, you're kind of stuck with it, and then the process allows for you to refund. So it is what it is, as long as the applicant there is made aware of what their rights are. Process kind of works.
Okay. Let's move on then to resolution number 2023-R-63. City Clerk, would you read this item by title only, please?
Resolution number 2023-R-63, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, repealing resolution number 2021-R-09, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute annual grant applications and related non-binding documents, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. City Manager, this is your item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I let our grants manager, Valerie Malinowski, speak, I just want to let you know that on May 31st of 2023, Governor DeSantis approved House Bill 5, which went into effect on July 1st, enacting laws of Florida Chapter 2023-173, which provides for the renaming of the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity to the Florida Department of Commerce. This resolution will allow for those changes to occur, but I will now pass over to Ms. Malinowski to see if she wants to add something to the conversation.
So the resolution before you makes two changes to section 3.01 of the existing resolution. And the first thing is, as Mr. Fletcher mentioned, the change from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity to the Florida Department of Commerce. And the other change is to add the Florida House of Representatives and U.S. House of Representatives to section 3.01 to allow it to become a grant type process, since those are applications.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm opening up the floor to commission questions. Commissioner McDowell.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The only thing I have to ask is the Florida Department of Emergency Management and the Florida Emergency Management Agency, I believe, are one in the same. And I learned all this with dealing with Hurricane Ian and the emergency management. I think they're like duplicating, because when I went on the state's website, it is only the Florida Division of Emergency Management. There's nothing else as outlined in this resolution.
And actually, I think you just pointed out an error in here. So instead of Florida Division or Department, Florida Emergency Management Agency, it should be the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Okay.
So it looks like we're going to need to make.
All right, so what about the state? So Florida Division?
It should be
of-
division.
Okay, so, well, I'm glad I asked this question.
Yeah.
So the first one should be Florida Division of Emergency Management. And then the other change would be Federal Emergency Management Agency.
That's correct.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other lights on. We're always happy when we catch a Scribner's error, so we got that straightened out. City Clerk, do we have any public comment? Then I'm closing this hearing and requesting a motion.
Make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Make a
McDowell.
motion to approve resolution number 2023-R-63 with the following changes. Changing Florida Division Emergency Management and Federal Emergency Management Agency titles.
We have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner McDowell to adopt resolution number 2023-R-63 with the following changes. Changing Florida Division of Emergency Management to Florida Division, Department to
Federal.
Division, and then Federal Department to Federal Division.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, try it again.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-R-63, changing two titles, the Florida Division of Emergency Management and Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor White. City Clerk, you want to read it back to us?
A motion was made by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor White to approve resolution number 2023-R-63 with the following changes of Florida Division of Emergency Management and Florida Emergency Management Agency.
Federal Emergency.
And Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Okay, there's nothing more to that. Let's vote, please.
Thank you.
And that motion passes 5-0. Moving right along to resolution number 2023-R-77. City Clerk, would you read this by title only, please?
Resolution number 2023-R-77, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, implementing the state's statutory mandate to prepare and post business impact estimates prior to the adoption of proposed ordinances pursuant to Florida Statute Section 166.0414, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
City Manager, this one's yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Effective October 1 of 2023, Florida Statute Section 166.041, Section 4A requires that municipalities prepare or cause to be prepared a business impact estimate. The statute requires the governing body to take action rather than the city. The city attorney recommends the City Commission consider resolution number 2023-R-77. This will direct the city manager or designee to perform the required business impact estimate on behalf of the commission and directs the city clerk to post said business impact estimates on the city website no later than the date the notice of proposed ordinance is published in the newspaper pursuant to the Florida statute. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, ma'am.
Thank you for that, City Manager. I'm opening up the floor to commission questions. Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, so in my agenda briefing, I had asked the question about how are we going to know if we are exempt from having that ordinance have the business impact statement? And will it be included in the ordinance when we are doing like first reading or second reading? I'm not seeing any verbiage to address that. If an ordinance comes before us, and how are we supposed to know if it was exempt? How are we supposed to know if there is a business impact and what that business impact is? And I was hoping to see some kind of verbiage in this ordinance addressing that.
Commissioner McDowell, and I apologize if this was not properly addressed at your agenda briefing, but the city attorney's office has already worked with the city manager, the city clerk, and charter officers have worked together to update our templates, and every ordinance that comes before the board after October 1 of 2023 will have a new subsection in it addressing the business impact estimate, either stating that it was posted as required or that it is exempt, and then identifying the exemption. Additionally, we have recommended that for second reading, the business impacts estimate, if prepared and posted, also be included in your agenda backup.
So it's automatically going to be part of the ordinance process.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
here what we've presented as a resolution that is fairly broad. And typically, this is not the type of resolution that's brought before you. The only reason we have this process piece brought before you now is because of the slightly unusual language that states that the municipality's governing body must do this. So we want to make sure that you all are directing that it be conducted. But we already have that process worked out.
So as a follow-up question, thank you for explaining it's part of that template for these ordinances. Since we have approved 2 ordinances, we continued 2 ordinances to second reading. Will second reading, since we're after October 1st, include if it's exempt or if it's
Yes.
part? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm not seeing any other lights on, so let me request public comment. City Clerk? Okay, then I'm closing this hearing and requesting a motion.
I'll make it.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I move to adopt resolution number 2023R77 as presented.
We have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner Stokes, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich to adopt resolution number 2023-R-77 as presented. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote, please. And that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to general business. Item 23-1430, City Clerk, would you introduce this item, please?
Yes, these minutes were submitted to commission for any recommended changes, and we did receive one back for a typo in the Fire Station 81 renovation. It was the capital improvement project number was wrong by 1 letter, so that has been updated.
Thank you for that. I'm opening up the floor to commission questions. Seeing none, any public comment on this, City Clerk? Then I'm requesting a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the September 12th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented with the change that was made.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Vice Mayor White, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich to approve the September 12th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented with the recommended changes. If there's nothing more to that, let's vote. And that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to item 23-1446. It's time to discuss the city attorney's performance. Would you like to lead us off, City Attorney?
That sounds so foreboding when you say that. No, in your agenda backup are the standard materials for the performance reviews, including my self-evaluation, which is always so fun to fill out. Although I say that in jest, it is fun to fill out because I have an outstanding team, and it's always a good opportunity to let you know what all they have been accomplishing throughout the year. Also in the backup is each individual commissioner's evaluation form, a summary of all of the numbers pulled from those, and then a copy of my employment contract, which was effective September 7th, or which the anniversary of which was on September 7th. So as always, it is such a wonderful honor to represent the city. I am very fortunate to be in this position, and most fortunate of all to have an outstanding team supporting all of the efforts and protecting the city's legal interests. So thank you.
I suspect there won't be any commission questions, but I'm sure folks may want to make comments. Commissioner McDowell, I see your light on.
You do have a great team, and I think it's because you're at the head of that whole entire department. So kudos to you. I really liked the team input and feedback that you proactively asked your team to do, and I really would like to see that incorporated with both of our other charter officers. I think it gives valuable input for them and their team to make any changes that they might see are relevant, and be able to give kudos and understand that, yeah, hey, we are doing a pretty good job. So I really appreciated that. I look forward to hearing my fellow commissioners' comments if they have any, but good job. Thank you.
Commissioner Stokes.
Yes, I believe that city attorney and her department's job is to look out for the best interests of the city, and I do believe Miss Amber and her team do a great job doing just that. I also have found that, as a new commissioner, many of the things I've asked about and questioned about, especially during my one-on-one time with her, have been addressed and looked into, and I really feel that our city attorney's department does a great job, serving our community. They really do. I think that, especially in light of all the projects, all the growth, all the things that are going on in our city, it can be challenging. And you guys are on it, and do come back to us in a timely fashion. And I think give us the conservative guidance that we need. And I think that is important here, because commissioners really don't have sometimes that legal grounding, and it helps to have somebody help guide us and navigate us, so we work within the lines.
Vice Mayor White.
Yes, I echo what Commissioner Stokes says, and to let you know, and I know you probably know this anyway, I enjoy our one-on-ones. You're extremely approachable. You never consider any of my questions to be irrelevant. None of my questions are too small or to ask, but you answer everything, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the fact that your team is so professional and put together, and you have, no matter what we get together for, what issue is out there that you, I have complete confidence in you and your team, and yeah, my evaluation, I think, says it all. So thank you.
Commissioner Emmerich.
Yeah, I have to, sorry, but Commissioner White just stole my whole speech. She must have been reading my notes. I don't know, but yes, it's been a blessing. I've said that quite a few times. Your team is on top because you're on the top of that team. And I think this city has been blessed way too much by your services. I mean, even when we're short-staffed, you still get everything done. You bring everything up, and like Commissioner White said, at a total professional stance. And you are very approachable. And we have our one-on-ones, and we can joke back and forth. But when it comes down to the business at hand, it's amazing that you can even get me to understand what's going on. So I thank you so much for everything that you do.
Makes a good point.
The difficulty with going last is that everyone has already expressed my sentiments, so I'm not going to repeat them. I will simply add that I just love your templates and the implementation of consistency in how we approach certain kinds of things, and you and your department's willingness to accept input from other departments in terms of things that they would like to see templatized. I just think that demonstrates a great spirit of cooperation and partnership with the other departments and the department heads. I was also very impressed with the training modules that you've sort of implemented for your own team, and you're making those available to other departments as well. I just love to see that interdepartmental collaboration and support. I think it speaks really highly of you and your team. So I think we've beaten you up enough. So is there any public comment on this item, City Clerk?
There is none.
Then I'm requesting a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Emmerich.
I would say that I move to approve a 5% salary increase for the city attorney based on her performance evaluation effective on her anniversary date of September 7th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
You do.
We have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner Emmerich and seconded by Commissioner Stokes to approve a 5% salary increase for the city attorney based upon her performance evaluation effective on her anniversary date of September 7th, 2023. Commissioner McDowell, you have a comment?
Yeah, it's well warranted to do the 5% increase in light of us giving our employees basically a 4%. You know, I advocated for that during the city manager's evaluation, but since it was approved to give him a 5% increase, it only seems right and just to also give you a 5% increase. So thank you to the motion maker.
Okay, let's, those who haven't voted, please do so. And that motion passes 5-0. I'm going to push on to our last item, item 23-1447. Discussion and possible action regarding strategies and options for changes in development zoning of activity centers with emphasis on creating greater non-residential development. Commissioner Stokes, this one's yours. Would you like to share your thoughts on?
I would. First, the reason I brought this request to city manager was that as we go through this process of rezoning and redo of the ULDC, we've spent time especially reviewing Chapter 3 and talked about the rezoning in many areas of our city, and the activity centers, from my perspective, were conspicuously absent in our discussions. These big brown blobs on the map that everybody looks at and says, why don't we do all our development there? Why don't we put all our non-residential development there? And, by God, we could leave the rest of the city alone and everybody would be happy. So, I felt that bringing this forward was important because I did have the opportunity to sit with Ms. Lena and Lori and ask some questions on a one-on-one and get a little better understanding as to how these activity centers work. And I think, while appreciating this is a morning meeting, and it was difficult for perhaps a lot of our citizens to show up in person about, to listen to this discussion about such an important subject. I'm hoping that many of them tune into YouTube and listen to this. And I hope it helps because, the activity centers are a key part of our city. And I'm hoping that some of the misinformation and misunderstandings about them and our ability to develop them as non-residential economic engines for the city, I think there's just a whole lot of information people don't understand. And so with that, I was hoping Ms. Elena and Lori might come down and perhaps at my prompting, they can address some of the issues and some of the conversation we had one-on-one because it was a value to me, and I think and hope it would be a value to my fellow commissioners as well as the citizens.
I don't see any other lights on, so I'll weigh in. I would like to weigh in. So you just stay, because I always speak very briefly. I will just say that the amount of residential development in our activity centers has always irked me. And I've had these conversations a long time ago with staff and appreciate the legal implications and property rights of those developers. But I also would be very interested in what Ms. Elena has to say on this topic.
If I might have a little bit of latitude, I have a couple of comments and/or questions that might help lead the discussion a little bit, and so we just don't go all over the place. I think it would help to have a little bit of history on the activity centers and how they fit in as a percentage of the total city. how the property rights issues in these activity centers affect us? You know, kind of, if you could take us all through kind of a little of what you took me through, that I think it would be a tremendous benefit.
Commissioner McDowell, do you wish to speak
Yeah,
before Ms. Elena?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect for this discussion because it was very vague in the summary report. So, you know, I have questions. I didn't know exactly how this was going to be moving forward, if it was more of it informational, are we going to be giving them direction? I wasn't prepared because it doesn't really say much except that you wanted this agenda item, and that it's going to be focused on activity centers. So I definitely have questions, but I wanted to kind of get an idea of what we're going to be talking about, what the main goals were. So if you want to do your Q&A and we'll go from there.
I think if Elena goes through it a little, I think it'll prompt some questions. And maybe we could move from there, because it is a pretty broad topic, but I think after my conversations with Elena and Laura, she saw where my concerns lay or my questions lie, and perhaps, you know, that'll start it off, because I do agree. I think everybody will have some questions.
Okay, take it away, Ms. Elena.
Good morning, Elena Ray, Director of Development Services. So activity centers are certainly a concern. The amount of residential and the entitlements that are in those activity centers has been a concern of the commission, and has also been a concern, frankly, of staff. So we have looked at those. I can tell you that right now activity centers make up about 10% of our land area citywide. Much of those activity centers are already developed or have entitlements, and a large part of them probably we're trying to tease out the numbers. I mean, we've thought in our heads, just looking at the entitlements and the existing development, that it may be about half residential, half dedicated to non-residential. If we just go by the half, and as I said, we're teasing those percentages out, and we hope to have those here in the next week or so.
What do those entitlements mean?
So entitlements, some of the activity centers, for instance, Heron Creek, I'll just use that one. It's under what's called a Development of Regional Impact, a DRI. And you hear that term a lot in our discussions with applications that come in. DRIs and entitlements are where the applicant or the developer, the property owner, at some point in the past got approvals through this body and even the state legislature when it comes to a DRI. The DRIs are approved by the state legislature. They don't approve any more of them. They discontinued that, but the ones that were approved are in effect currently. Those approvals give property owners rights for development, and the city must honor those rights. So when they got those DRIs or previous developments approved, even if they didn't build anything at that time, or they didn't build everything they were entitled to, they are still entitled to develop whatever was approved in those original approvals, as they may have been amended over the years. So taking Heron Creek, a lot of Heron Creek is developed as residential. The part of the Heron Creek golf course community, apartments that are being developed here just south of us on Sumter, those are all entitlements and existing development that have been approved in previous years. The city can't claw those back. We can't take those back when they come forward with an application. As long as it's part of their approvals, we can't tell them no. So that limits us on the impact that we can have on our existing activity centers. Some of the activity centers do not have DRIs in place, or at least, and certain areas of activity centers still are able to be developed in large part based on whatever the commission believes they should be developed as. For instance, Yorkshire. Yorkshire does not have any approvals yet. We have shaped that activity center so that it is predominantly non-residential. There may be some, currently, there's an allowance for some high-density residential, which is important in activity centers because in order to have the density of commercial uses, you have to have the rooftops. So, and you also want to have an area where people can walk to different commercial uses or ride their bike rather than getting in their car and driving across town. So in order to have that density in that environment, you do need an amount of residential. You definitely don't want low residential, which is what we have in some of the activity centers. Panacea, we have a lot of low-density residential. Heron Creek, we have a lot of low-density residential. So what we are doing to try to maximize the area that we have left in our activity centers. And we are, some of the activity centers in the new rezoning proposal, we are proposing to expand the Yorkshire Activity Center as well as the Gateway Activity Center. And we are ensuring that those would be high intensity uses. So we're making some changes there, and that's increasing it by several percentage points. So going from say 10% up to something in the neighborhood of 13 or 14% to try to get the most out of our activity centers. Also with the Live Local Act, we're working through that as well. We've currently, we've made the determination internally that if an activity center allows residential, then the Live Local Act doesn't apply to that activity center. So if it allows residential and there's residential capacity within that activity center, then the Live Local Act would not allow someone to build affordable housing in that activity center.
So to step back just a couple of feet, so with the portion of activity centers that are restricted because there have been obviously previous approvals given, is there any flexibility with property that say was pre-approved for, let's say, residential, to play with the mix of residential? The density of residential, the percentages of residential to non-residential, or are those permitted uses per the original approvals really spell out verbatim what they can and can't do?
Using Heron Creek as an example, they have approved what's called a land use trade-off matrix, where they can take, say, commercial square footage and convert it to residential. They get to do that at their request, not so, and it's automatic. I mean, if they have residential square footage still available or residential density still available within their approvals, they are allowed to say, we want to trade X number of square feet of commercial and convert it to residential. We can't say no.
So that's why along Sumter, which was years back envisioned to be pretty much a retail, light commercial or OPI kind of environment, maybe similar to Coco Plum or whatever, and now are high density apartments, that is because they have the legal right to do it and the city can't stop it.
Right, as long as they stay within the maximum number of residential units that they are allowed within their DRI. And currently they are within, they're getting close. They're very, very close to that cap. So their DRI said you can have X number of residential units in this DRI. They're almost there. But as long as they stay within that cap, they can trade the uses back and forth.
I'm going to respectfully ask my fellow commissioners to use your lights if you have a question or a comment, just to sort of keep things orderly. Vice Mayor White?
Yes, I'm intrigued by what you said, that if an area allows residential, then the Live Local Act does not apply. Does that mean just parcel by parcel? Because my particular question is about Activity Center 6, which does have quarter-acre lots within that activity center. Does that mean that that would not apply to that entire activity center, or is it just a parcel that somebody owns?
I'm going to let Lori address specifically the uses in Activity Center 6.
Lori Barnes, Assistant Director, Development Services. In Activity Center 6, currently, a portion of Activity Center 6 is zoned PCD. Parts of Activity Center 6 are zoned residential single-family 2. Under our current regulations in Chapter 55, which addresses activity centers, low-density residential is not permitted in Activity Center 6. The comprehensive plan similarly does not allow single-family residential in Activity Center 6. What should have happened when these activity centers were established and consistent with the comprehensive plan is all of the land in that activity center should have been given a PCD zoning district, and the requirements of the activity center, which only allow high density in that AC6, would have been applied. So we are aware there are some single-family homes in Activity Center 6 that currently exist. They are pre-existing non-conforming to our current regulations and will be to our future regulations as well. And we have clarified with our zoning staff that they are to, on any single-family permit request in the eastern portion of the city, verify whether that land is within the activity center. Because if it is, the stricter of the regulations apply and single-family is not permitted to be built.
Okay, because it's going back to what Commissioner Stokes said about that brown blob. So Activity Center 6, it does encompass what are quarter-acre lots. And I've had people calling me saying they're still building houses, and when they give me the address, it's within that brown blob. So you're saying they shouldn't be, or they're RS2? I don't.
They should not be receiving building permits to build single-family homes in that district, and we've put measures into place to ensure that no more single-family detached building permits are issued for Activity Center 6.
Because it's did you say RS2? Is that the
Because
zoning?
the zoning and the land use conflict, and the land use of Activity Center 6 prohibits single-family development. And we will be correcting that conflict in the new ULDC by assigning each activity center its own corresponding zoning district.
And just one last question. Did that land use that you just mentioned, was that always in place? So single-family houses should never have been?
I believe, and I may not be precisely accurate, I believe the activity centers were established in the early to mid 2000s. And at that time, the single-family zoning on those lots should have been changed. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, it was not converted to PCD to be consistent with the future land use designation.
Okay.
So yes, ma'am, we are aware of the issue, and we have put measures into place to ensure that we do not issue any more single-family permits for that activity center.
All right, thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, Activity Center 6 has expanded with the proposed Chapter 3 new zoning map. And without having the actual zoning, I'm sorry, the activity center outline with me, I am going to assume it's only where the little skinny part is, where it's commercial, multifamily, and government. There is a large portion that is currently zoned single family, even though the proposed activity center is expanding. So are you saying you're not going to issue single-family residential building permits in the expanded future activity center based on the proposed new map?
If the city commission approves expanding that activity center. Because the proposed map, essentially what it does, it takes in all of the land within that Yorkshire Raintree Loop north of 75. So all of the land within the Yorkshire Loop north of 75, and I don't have the map in front of me, but would be included in that activity center. And if that were to pass, at that point, we would no longer issue single-family permits within that new expanded area.
So the existing zoning map has commercial, multifamily, and single family. So, gosh, I just want to make sure you're not allowing single family in the areas that currently allow single family.
No, and we would not currently allow single family in the areas that are designated as future land use activity center. We're pulling up the map.
I'd appreciate that. I'm trying to get it up to, and
This is the proposed. It hasn't been updated.
that's the proposed.
And we're making some modifications to this. We've been constantly tweaking this, and as we work with residents and our meetings with the commission. So currently, this southeastern area is not within the activity center.
Correct.
Okay. We're proposing expanding the activity center to encompass that. Right now, it's not in the activity center future land use, and it is zoned residential. So if
Correct.
someone came in to pull a permit today, they could.
Okay. I just wanted
now-
that clarification.
Right, absolutely. But if the commission does decide to rezone that area and also changes the comp plan at the same time to expand the activity center future land use designation, at that point in time, we would discontinue issuing
Okay.
those permits.
So thank you for that. Now, if you go south of 75,
Right.
in that brown area, that is in the future land use as an activity center, but currently it is also zoned single-family residential. So are you allowed?
Correct. So this was, as Lori was saying, this area is future land use activity center, which does not allow single-family homes. The zoning on it should have been changed at that time, but it wasn't. So it is zoned RSF2. The issue, and permits, building has been issuing permits for 15, 20 years out there. The issue is that under state law and our own codes, whenever there's a conflict between the zoning and the future land use, the comp plan prevails. So they should not have been issuing permits there because it goes against the comp plan.
But can you bring up a map of the future land use currently as it stands in the comp plan?
Sure.
Because I
While you're doing that, Commissioner Stokes, do you have a question?
Yeah, but perhaps we ought to let Commissioner McDowell finish before we get to me, because it might open up more discussion. So,
I've had a request from the dais that we take a 5-minute break.
That'd be really helpful.
So let's do that. Let's come back.
Perfect.
Well,
That'll give them-
let's come back at high noon. So that'll be like a 13-minute break.
That'll give me a chance to pull my maps too.
When you're following behind large trucks, you want to make sure that you're following at a safe distance. And if you don't know that safe distance, just remember if you can't see their mirrors, they can't see you.
We stop at about 1,000 houses a day. In order for us to complete that, and be safe, we try not to rush in between the houses. It takes us a little time. We're not trying to slow you down. We're just trying to get things up in an orderly fashion. How our trucks work, we have two different types of trucks that pick up residential garbage and recycle. We have one that's a side loader, and we have one that's a front loader. When that bucket comes out of the top of the truck and is positioned to pick up cans up front, you have probably 8-9 feet in front of you that the people behind you passing may not know about.
On a large truck, construction vehicles, etc., there's a lot of flashing lights. So just make sure their brake lights, you're paying attention to their brake lights and their blinkers so you know what they're intending to do. So you want to make sure that you're not on a double yellow line or a curve, and you have good visibility for oncoming traffic so you can pass safely.
If you're too close and you go to pass, you never know what's around the corner.
When coming up to an intersection behind a large vehicle, realize that you can't pass within 100 foot of an intersection. Go through that intersection safely, following at a safe distance, and then once your lines allow you to pass, do so safely when there's not oncoming traffic.
Safety first. Don't risk your life to get somewhere sooner. All right? You're gonna hurt yourself or somebody else. Let's just keep it safe.
If you're happy and you know it, flap your wings. If you're happy and you know it, flap your wings. If you're happy and you know it, you really ought to show it. If you're happy and you know it, flap your wings.
This is the first 1,000 Days mural. I'm a figurative artist. That's what I like to do the most is people. And to me, any age is wonderful to do, but something about a baby. It's about nurturing, love for the pregnant woman. For the new infant, and then as the baby grows and develops and the mother's caring for the baby. This is actually closer to 3 stories.
It's beautiful. It's so joyous, it's so fun. There is so much development that goes on in that period of time that, yes, it's vitally important that we get this out to everybody. Those first 1,000 days sets the lifetime for the child. We have such a young community, so many families within 12,000 school children. It's perfect within our community.
Being able to, have everyone come by and see it and everything, it's an honor to be able to do it, and I'm just glad we were chosen. A lot of positive, a lot of people stopping by, really seeing how it's coming along and what a great job the artist has done, more than what anyone would expect. It just looks awesome.
We hope families will enjoy the mural in Northport, its vibrant colors and the sense of possibility that it inspires. At Gulf Coast, we are so proud to sponsor the mural in Northport and to use the Haddon Memorial Endowment Fund, knowing that it is dedicated to improving the quality of life for residents in Northport.
It literally takes a whole community to raise a baby. It can be tough for families with many resources. The first 1,000 days is working to ensure equal opportunity of support and resources for all young families in our community. Really want to give a big shout out. Without the foresight of Charles and Marjorie Barancik Foundation, this wouldn't have been possible to launch First 1,000 Days. We have had robust support from other philanthropy organizations, including Sarasota Memorial Hospital Foundation, the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, the Selby Foundation, as well as Flanzer Trust and many individual donors.
All of the other businesses and organizations donating paint and supplies is just heartwarming.
We invite everyone who goes to see the mural to go home and create a sidewalk chalk mural of your own. Get out that chalk and enjoy coloring our community with the images of healthy child development.
It's a great message. That's the number one thing, is that that's what people always keep remarking, is it is so upbeat, and it's, you know, it's easy to just feel the well-being and the joy, which is what, you know, they want to bring to everybody. I'm just really happy it's turned out really well.
Let's kick it. Alright, stop, collaborate and listen. Parks is back with an old invention. Whenever your pet goes number 2, it's your job to scoop the poo. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't think so. Poop shouldn't be left to decompose. To the extreme, bag it up like a champ. Throw it away, use your part, get amped. Damn, rush your baggie to the trash. Keep the water clean, do your part in a flash. Deadly, one bacteria goes steadily. Anything less than scooping is a felony. Love it or leave it, you better gangway. You better hit the bullseye, the dogs don't play. This can be a problem, but yo, we'll solve it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. Don't forget to scoop. Don't forget to scoop. Yo man, let's get out of here. Word to your pupper. Don't forget to scoop. Don't forget to scoop. Don't forget to scoop.
And we are resuming this City of Northport Commission meeting. Just to sort of frame the rest of the conversation, it was my assumption in reading this agenda item that today's conversation is a more strategic conversation. I'm sure all of us have very specific and detailed questions about activity centers in general. And I would like to suggest that if we do still have a lot of specific questions, that we make a request for a workshop just on this topic to work through those things. But for today's intentions, that we sort of keep it strategic and what do we really want our activity centers to be and look like as we move forward. Is that fair enough, Commissioner Stokes, since this is your item? Okay, well, I think we left off. You had the floor, Commissioner Stokes, so if you want to continue.
So if, as I finished up previously with my comments, we got activity centers in total. Oops. I'm sorry. So to pick up where I left off,
we have activity centers which constitute roughly 10% of our entire city acreage. And roughly half of these activity centers come with entitlements at this point in time. And those entitlements really limit the ability of the city to change what's going to get developed there. It's pretty much those rights have already been approved either at the local or state level for those property owners. So we're really looking at what constitutes about 5% of our land mass that makes up the rest of these activity centers, maybe another couple percent as we expand some of them. But of this 5 to 7% that we do have some impact on, reading the comp plan, there are laid out some rough percentages of mix within these activity centers on residential, office, commercial, light industrial, whatever they may be. And those percentages, as I understand it, apply to the activity center as a whole, not each specific parcel that may be owned by a different landowner. So my question kind of is, what flexibility do we have as a city have to, one, change those percentages, two, apply them parcel by parcel, so we can assure ourselves that 2, 3, 4 parcel owners don't gobble up all the residential and build high-density residential there, leaving the other parcels basically almost 100% non-residential, which may very well cause them to sit for extended periods of time. How can we assure that we're going to really maximize the non-residential growth within what's left, this 5%, and at the same time, creating that balance we need, as you said, with some residential to allow that activity center to really be the integration that we've wanted it to be.
Right. So one of the things that we're doing is tightening up the requirements for residential to be part of a mixed-use development, rather than somebody building all of the residential over in one area and leaving it up, as you said, to the remaining parcel owners to have to provide the commercial if and when they do. So we are, in those areas that we have control over, tightening up our requirements that each development be a mixed-use development. So up to the point where that activity center runs out of residential. And we are looking at changes within those percentages as well, so that it's much easier and we have more teeth to control and be able to actually get the commercial development.
So
you
we-
want to build residential, you're going to have to build commercial.
So we can and we are.
We are.
Cool.
Are you all set? Commissioner Emmerich.
Yeah, this goes in line with what the mayor's proposal was about when we bring this back to discuss this in a bigger session. What I would like to see incorporated into that is the maps like you're showing us today in the backup with the way it is and the way it's proposed to be. What's currently allowed, what y'all are proposing to be allowed, and what those changes are in staff recommendations, to where that's in the backup material, to where the citizens out there can see step by step what we're actually looking at, and then they'll have a better understanding on what we are going to be discussing throughout that workshop, because I think that would help everybody to come to a conclusion at the end of that workshop on whichever line we want to take. So I just wanted to add that to that conversation. So thank you.
Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, I'm still kind of hung up about when, and maybe I misheard, that the Live Local Act, if an activity center has residential in it, the Live Local Act would not apply?
Correct.
Okay.
Because residential is already allowed. They could already develop residential there.
But the Live Local Act allows mixed use in mixed-use areas, that it can be the Live Local Act, regardless if it's zoned residential or zoned mixed use.
Not in pre-platted communities. So there's a distinction between the zoning categories that the Live Local Act applies to if we have less than 20% of our land area zoned commercial and industrial. In cities or counties that have 20% or more zoned commercial and industrial, they also have to apply the Live Local Act in mixed use districts. In cities that have less than 20% of their land area dedicated to commercial and industrial, they do not have to apply the Live Local Act to mixed use districts. So there's a distinction, because when they started talking about the cities that, in the legislation where it starts talking about the cities that have less than 20% of those, of their land area dedicated, they dropped off mixed use. Now, any developments have to be mixed use. So because we're less than 20%, it's a two-pronged thing here. Because we have less than 20% of our land area zoned for commercial and industrial, any development that comes in and applies to develop under the Live Local Act must be mixed use. That's part one. There's a second part to it. Because we have less than 20% of our area designated as commercial and industrial, the only places we have to allow a development to come in under the Live Local is in areas zoned commercial and industrial, not mixed use. If we had more than 20%, we would also have to allow those developments to come in areas zoned mixed use.
I would be really interested in seeing exactly where you're saying that, because I have been looking for that. I'm on the Land Use Committee, and just Friday, we had a big, huge presentation on the Live Local Act, talking about pre-platted communities, the 20% tax exemption, which is another huge problem. That's all associated with the Live Local. And they contend Live Local can come in regardless of what your percentages are, commercial, industrial, mixed use. Activity centers by nature are mixed use.
So,
but then the 20% threshold applies because we're pre-platted and we're under that 20%. So they have to be mixed use.
It's two parts, though. If
Okay,
you look
I
at
would love to see where you're seeing that second
Absolutely,
part.
because if you look at the language where it talks about communities that are more than 20%, it specifically says that the Live Local applies to zoning designations of commercial, industrial, and mixed use.
Correct. But I do not see where you're separating the distinction.
Because then when you drop down to for developments or for cities that have less than 20%, it specifically says that the municipality must allow the affordable housing development in areas zoned commercial and industrial. It does not say mixed use.
Okay. And again, if you could send me, I would
And
appreciate that.
We do have
As
something
a
from Florida
follow-up-
League of Cities and our outside legal consultant as well. So we will.
As a follow-up, I would be very interested in knowing what, so currently, I think everybody agrees we're at like 8%. How you got to that 8%, I would love to figure that out. Does it include the mixed activity centers, non-residential component in that 8%? I would love to get a very broad understanding of that 8%. But bigger than that, if we were to approve the zoning map as proposed at the last workshop, what do those new numbers look like? Because if we are going to be above that 20% with this new proposed thing, that scares the bejeebers out of me.
We will not.
Well, I would
we-
love to see all of that.
Right. We
Um,
are, so we're refining those numbers. We've got a couple of drafts that we're working on. It's a lot of math. And so
I was going to sit down and try and figure it out, but mine would be such an estimate that.
you have to have GPS.
Exactly.
GIS to do it.
GIS to do it.
And so we are working through a lot of tables right now to get to those numbers. Keep in mind when we talk about these increases, we're not talking about, hey, we're going to increase our commercial land area by 15%. It's not going to happen. When you have a third of your land that's dedicated for conservation, it's hard to move the needle on any given use, okay? So we are definitely going to be below 20%, even with the addition of the percentage of activity centers that are commercial or non-residential.
So will the 8%, does it include the non-residential component that is in activity
It's an
centers?
estimated, yes, it does. Well,
The 8% does not include the non-residential components of activity centers or villages. And we are working on refining those numbers of what currently exists, non-residential in both of those districts, what has approved development petitions for non-residential, and then an estimation of what build out of those areas will look like under the proposed regulations, which will limit residential development to 60% of the square footage in an activity center if they are proposing residential development. So we will have those figures for you in the future. We are refining them right now because we understand when you see PCD and you see activity centers, there is no percentage breakdown of the mix of uses, and we understand that you need that to make your decision. So we are working on those numbers for you.
So while you're working on it, I just want to make sure you're going to be including all of that information for the proposed ULDC rezoning also.
Correct.
So we will be able to compare apples and apples, oranges and oranges, and grapes, not
Yes.
having to try and, okay.
Okay, your time is up, Commissioner. Do I need to come back to you, or are you all set?
Quite possibly, yes, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner Stokes.
Okay, so you brought up a stat that I think is important to repeat. And that's that I believe the number was approximately 26% of our city's land is conservation land.
let me see if I can get the, let's see, current.
Which is a pretty healthy number.
That's right. Here.
Maybe a little higher.
Conservation, but when you look at rec open, 14%.
Yeah, so it's about, it's close to 30%. Like I said, we're still
good.
refining all of these numbers, but when you look at the amount that's dedicated to either recorded conservation space or is set aside as open space, it's
Pretty substantial
about
portion.
it's substantial. It's about 30%. Yeah, it's a lot.
So basically, pretty much my last comment and/or question here is, in light of some of the things we've heard today, and hopefully we'll learn more about in a proposed workshop, if my fellow commissioners like that idea, the thought that just development in that 5% of the activity center, or 5% of the land, or half of the activity centers that exist, wouldn't in and of itself get us anywhere near the 15 to 18% we're looking for non-residential development. Can you speak a little bit about, again, the importance of why staff looked at a rezoning pretty much citywide, because let's face it, there are plenty of people out there who still are just distressed over the fact that we're looking to change the complexion of many, many areas of our city, and they still, with some justification, because like us, it's hard to understand all this sometimes. You know, why can't it all be just done somewhere else and not in my backyard? You know, these big brown blobs, by God, it looks like everything could fit in there.
And looking at the map, you would think so, but there simply isn't enough land within the activity centers to get us there, or get us close even. So, unless we are going to build skyscrapers in every one of them, which we're not a skyscraper community, we never will be. It won't happen. In order to get that balanced tax base so that commercial supports more than it does now of the city's expenses, we have to look outside of the activity centers. The other point, not just the tax base, though that is a huge and the primary driving factor behind it. Jobs, as was said, we want to be able to disperse those jobs across the community. But also right now, because so much of our area is low density, we have very few options for people who don't want to live in single family homes, who want to live in something else. And not everyone wants to drive across town to get to the services that they need as well. So the more that you put services and jobs within easy commute of the people who live here, the less impact you have on traffic and our roadways. So by distributing those a little more evenly, you have the ability to reduce the amount of time people sit in traffic, the amount of road infrastructure that's needed, and the amount of repairs that are needed over the years. So it's a lot of different factors that plays into it as to why it's better to have it a little more evenly distributed rather than in a couple of giant centers that everybody has to then drive to.
Thank you.
Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, I hear you about the diverse housing, but I got to tell you, people do not even walk from one end of Coco Plum to the other. They get in their car and they drive. So to assume that having diverse housing stock close by to commercial and jobs and stuff like that is unreasonable, because it's either so hot or it's raining. So they're still going to drive. So I hear what you're saying, but the reality is people are still going to drive, no matter how far it is, because I see it all the time with Coco Plum. And that's just a short area. They don't even walk across the street, across 41. It's not in their nature. Going back to your 30% conservation, because the mayor moved on too quickly for me to ask this question. When you say 30% is conservation, whether it's recorded or set aside as open space, is that including the Myakka State Forest? And is that including Orange Hammock, or is that in addition to?
It is. Those are in our city limits, and that is part of our land use that we have to quantify.
It would be very interesting to know if those two were removed, what does that percentage look like?
We can get that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have at this point, but
I'm not seeing any other lights on, so very interesting discussion. I want to thank you for bringing it up. And
does he have other comments?
The only thing I might do is see if either to make a motion or gather a consensus to see if fellow commissioners here feel there's some value in actually scheduling a workshop to discuss this further, maybe dig a little deeper. It would be, advertised enough so that we might get some more community involvement. I know how much we all love that, and I don't say that facetiously. I think it's really important. I really, really, really do. I know how painful this process can be, but the last thing I would want is at the end of this process for anybody to say, we didn't open this up as wide as we possibly could for everybody's input. I really do think it's one of the most important things we're doing. And I think the citizens of the city will appreciate it, even if there are those that may not agree with certain of the decisions we make or certain of the ways this zoning ends up. At least people will say that it was an open and inclusive process. So that would all, I really have, I don't know whether it would be better to make it as a motion or
a consensus. Let me add to that. I would be very supportive of having another workshop, perhaps primarily on the activity centers, but I would like to give staff some leeway to structure what that might look like. There could be other changes you've made in the overall Chapter 3.
And the time they need. Yeah.
Right, and thank you for that. I lost my train of thought. So,
Glad to have
yes, so
interrupted.
that there might be other items you would want to include in that. So I wouldn't want to be too restrictive in terms of the content frame for that. And I would certainly want it to be at a time when it's most helpful to staff to get the input. And I certainly don't want to delay the acceptance of the new ULDC. So that's also a primary concern of mine. So with those comments, I see Commissioner McDowell's light on.
Yeah, I, again, didn't know what exactly this whole conversation was, but by having it broad as activity centers, I do have a couple of questions that you did not mention. The area in Yorkshire that's in the future land use, that's all outside of our urban service boundary. So I always thought we could not issue building permits out there if it's outside the urban service boundary. So how did that happen?
We are preempted by the state. If a lot can support well and septic, then the state will issue a permit to build a home on well and septic. How did these homes get permitted? I cannot tell you, but I can tell you since we came here and we discovered that this was happening, which is contrary to the comprehensive plan, we have again put measures into place to make sure that no more single-family home permits are issued in Activity Center 6. Now, the areas outside of that, where it is not our urban service boundary, again, it goes back to the state regulations where we cannot prohibit a single-family home from going in on well and septic if their zoning supports it.
Is there electric out there? Because I thought that was the other reason we can't issue is there's no electric.
If FPL will extend the utilities to them, or if they incorporate solar power.
The other question I had is, there's a very large area being proposed in Activity Center 5, which is currently PCDs, and I don't know what that street is. I'm going to call it Citizens Parkway. That goes from Citizens Parkway down to Haberland. It's in PCD. It's what it's currently zoned now. It's where Bobcat Trail is. And then on the west side of Toledo Blade, that's all PCD, even though it's on the future land use map as single-family residential, which blows my mind that that's inconsistent. But it is being proposed to not be PCD, but to be a village on the
Yes.
future zoning remap?
Yes. The new ULDC will not have PCD zoning any longer. Bobcat Village, both the residential and the commercial, exhibit characteristics of a village. So it will be designated as a village, and all of the development standards from their original development concept plan approval will be incorporated into Chapter 3, so that staff and the public can easily discern what the setback requirements are, what parcels have allowable commercial use versus residential use, et cetera.
Is Bobcat Village a DRI?
No.
So villages require a VDPP and VDPB. Who's going to pay to have that done since it's pretty much already developed out there?
Village, their development concept plan will serve, that was originally approved for the development, will serve as their VDPP per se.
Development concept plan?
Yes, that is a term of old. It's similar to a development master plan.
Can you send that to me, please?
Sure.
I didn't know that that even existed out there. Be interesting to see what it is. So is that considered one of those entitlement areas?
It is.
Thank you. I have, Mayor.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other lights on.
Do we want to have a
I'd like to
consensus?
make a
Oh, you want
consensus.
to make, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to make a consensus that we request city manager establish a workshop dedicated to this issue of primarily activity centers and I guess ULDCV, right? To be scheduled at a time that makes most sense for staff.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we're going to be able to discuss the land uses that are outlined for activity centers, the uses prohibited, permitted and stuff. If we're going to drill down, we got to drill down.
Yep.
And it's not fun, it's not easy, but it's got to be done.
I'm a yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Yes.
Okay, we've got
Aye.
that consensus.
Are we going to be discussing the uses also? Because his consensus did not include that. I'm asking to make sure it is included.
Sure. Yes, let's amend it to include uses.
I'm a yes. I guess we have 3 yeses.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, Commissioner Emmerich. Okay. City Clerk, is there any public comment on this item? And I don't think we need a motion. We have our consensus documented. So we will move on. City Clerk, any general public comment for this meeting? And let's move on to Commission Communications. Thank you, staff, for that conversation.
Yeah.
Commissioner Emmerich.
Yeah, the only thing I got today is this morning, at about 4 a.m., 5, the honor flight took off from Punta Gorda, taking Northport veterans, local veterans and Port Charlotte veterans to DC to spend the day. The reason I mention this is my wife is on that flight and the vice commander from the AMVETS 2000. So let's just keep them in our prayers to where they're having a great day, great weather, and they make it home safe this evening. So,
Thank you for that, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware of that. Vice Mayor White.
Yes, just wanted to mention again the rain that we had, the unprecedented amount of rain we had fall. It was 5.5 inches in about 2 hours, and I had a lot of emails and phone conversations with residents, and I said to put that in perspective, August is usually our wettest month, and usually there's about 5 inches that falls in the entire month. So for two hours to hold 5.5 inches, we were going to have flooding. And kudos to Public Works for getting that bridge back up and running. I went over it the other day. I didn't even notice. Which is, I guess, a good thing. I didn't notice.
seamless repair.
That's right, seamless repair.
Well, there is a couple seams in there, but it
Okay.
was a seamless repair.
Okay. I did go to the quarterly meeting of the CHNEP, which is the Coastland and Heartland National Estuary Partnership. I I did send that to the city clerk, and she'll be getting it out to all of my fellow commissioners. There were some great presentations in that, including innovative nutrient reduction projects for improving water quality done by Stephen Swa, who I've had as a guest speaker in the past. And this is using wood chip, sawdust, and sand to facilitate the conversion of nitrate to nitrogen, which returns back to the atmosphere. And they've done pilot programs in Palmer Ranch and Lakewood Ranch in their stormwater retention ponds. And it kind of leads into the second presentation, which was on green stormwater infrastructure, which is the idea of treating and reducing pollution at its source rather than having it go to a pond where it just sits and creates additional problems. Nothing new, actually. It's been, this has been touted for years to have more tree islands. I know that Commissioner McDowell has talked about tree islands. Yes, they do serve a function, bioswales with plants and trees. I know a lot of our residents don't like to see plants in our ditches, but they do serve a purpose. They are filtering the pollutants that are in there so that they don't add to our stormwater problems. Went to the Big Brothers and, we had the Big Brothers and Sisters City Tour. This was back on September 20th, but we didn't have time to really give comments about that. And I thought that was a wonderful thing to do, a partnership out with the community. And also it should show the residents that our city staff doesn't just stay in their offices and do this, that they were out and they had to make all kinds of concessions and arrangements to accommodate the visitors that day. So again, kudos to city staff for stepping up and doing that. On Saturday, I went to the Salvation Army Welcome Home dinner at Solis Hall at Welland Park, and that's where the roses came from. The arrangements were done by our own natural florist over in the Biscayne shopping center there. And for a donation, you were able to take them home. So that was really a great opportunity to get together and see all the work the Salvation Army does. For those of you who don't know, they call me a bell ringer, but I don't ring the bell. I play the guitar and sing Christmas songs. That's what I do for my bell ringing. So I'm familiar with their work and what they do. October 1st in Sarasota County, their no smoking ordinance went into effect. No smoking at public spaces, including their beaches, which is a good thing. Those of us that go to the beaches, City of Venice has had it in place for quite a while. I am looking forward to our no smoking ordinance going through whatever it goes through and finally making its way here. But I know it will, because we have an extremely competent city attorney who we just gave glowing remarks to today. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Emmerich. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner McDowell.
So September 26th meeting got very late. I did not give any commission comments. I did submit to the clerk everything I did in September. So today I'll just focus on the past couple of weeks. First one is the Florida League of Cities Policy Committee I attended. As you know, I'm on the Land Use and Economic Development Committee, and we chose mobility fees and sovereign immunity to be our two priorities and position statements with the league. Sovereign immunity will be coming back, and so will mobility fees. Mobility fees almost got adopted with the state. And it's really important for the developers not to have to pay twice, mobility fees and impact fees. And it's important that the cities be able, because we're issuing the permit, that the mobility fees or impact fees stay in the area that the permit was issued. So it's going to be an interesting conversation as this goes through the legislative process. There was a huge discussion about the Live Local Act. I think everybody in that room agrees how that Live Local Act impacts their community and their cities. in a very negative way, not to mention how it absolutely goes against everything about home rule. We wanted it to be our priority. I think that was like a unanimous decision. However, because Senate President Pasadomo is still going to be the Senate leader, there is absolutely zero appetite for anybody to carry that, to possibly have any changes made to the Live Local Act to tighten things up. So the Florida League of Cities is going to work with the legislators to do some things on it, but chances are of it getting passed is going to be very slim to none. So with that being said by our Florida League of Cities leader, we kind of went, great, why would we make that our position if it's not going to gain any traction? So we reluctantly said no to the Live Local, although that is something we really wanted to focus on. I have a lot of information I'll be happy to share with the clerk, and she can forward to you, or if you're interested, I can just forward it. I also attended the retirement party for Sean Brennan, who had been with our city for, 30, 35 years, a very, very, very long time. I hope he's enjoying his retirement and not listening to this meeting. I was able to officiate the swearing-in ceremony for the chamber, for their new board of directors, and also the board of directors for the young professionals. It was a lot of fun. I got to swear in Commissioner Stokes as the ex officio, so that was quite an honor. I also attended the Chamber's Government Relations meeting. And with that, I conclude my meeting, and I also shared everything with the clerk to put into the backup materials.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Commissioner Stokes.
Right. Number of things. Attended the community service days at both the Moose Lodge with Vice Mayor, and also this past weekend at the Welland Park at the stadium that the police and fire rescue put on. Also attended ribbon cutting at the Moose for shared workspace, which is located in the Moose Annex, which is just down the street from the regular Moose Lodge there on Route 41, which opens up a half a dozen spaces for folks to share workspace, which is much needed in the city. Hopefully the first of many to come. As Commissioner McDowell said, she was nice enough to do the inductions that night. I did join the Northport Chamber as the ex officio, so I'm sure they can bring their wants and needs and asks to me over this next year. I look forward to helping to coordinate. What else? I also attended the Florida League of Cities Policy Committee meetings, as did all my fellow commissioners. I'm on the Utilities Committee. As our legislative priorities, we did focus on the number one, stormwater management, tightening up some of the rules regarding that and stormwater runoff, and also working towards some sort of policy statement on prohibiting the PACE program, which focuses on alternative sources, primarily solar panels, residential solar, and quite frankly, it's turned into a mess of a situation with an awful lot of predatory pricing going on, and it's caused a lot of problems for a lot of municipalities. So our committee decided to select that item as something that they felt we could put forth a policy statement on. We feel pretty assured that the legislature is going to take some action regarding PACE. And then I'm headed off on the 16th for 17th and 18th visit on the new Florida League of Cities FAST, which is a committee set up to bring Florida city legislative items to the federal level. FAST is a new committee formed, so a couple of times a year we do go and try to advocate for issues that will hopefully benefit all our cities here in Florida. So I look forward to that over the next week or so. And with that, I have one other thing that I've been horribly remiss in doing, and it's been held over my head. About at least a month back after the leadership classes end for the year that the chamber put on, I did extend congratulations to my fellow Commissioner McDowell, and I failed to do that for two very important people who work here in our city, who have held it over my head righteously and justifiably, and will probably continue to do so even though I'm bringing it up today, and that's Caitlin Griffin and Anna Duffy. Congratulations for participating in the leadership classes and for graduating. So you can keep giving me hell over it. And with that, I'm done, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I had the opportunity and honor to participate in the Awakened Church Food Pantry Community Days this past Saturday. They provide a number of services. Kiwanis was there offering free clothing, there were haircuts, food pantry. The community days also include a hot meal, and I had the opportunity to serve with a small team of people that hot meal. It was a very rewarding way for me to provide service to this community in a different way. Like everybody else, I was also at the Florida League of Cities Policy Committee meeting. Mine is Finance, Taxation, and Personnel. Live Local was also a hot topic in that meeting as well. The Vice Mayor of Sarasota also expressed his displeasure in how the penny tax money is distributed, because his feeling was most of that money is generated in North County, and it gets distributed based on population. He feels Northport gets their fair share. I chimed in and said, I don't see the issue. It really works for me. So that got a good laugh out of the assemblage. I've spent a lot of quality time with Northport PD the last few weeks. I attended the National Coffee with a Cop event. That was a lot of fun, and pizza with the police at El Primo with some of my fellow commissioners. That was a lot of fun. I also attended the networking breakfast for the chamber. I sometimes miss those, but they are one of my favorite things to do. I also sat in on the Beyond School Walls, which was the Big Brother and Sister kickoff with Vice Mayor. And it was just very rewarding for me to see our staff give of their personal time to be mentors to this kids. Boy, we just have a great community. And then I also want to give staff a shout out on the rapid repair of price. I just love it when people undercommit and over-deliver. And that work was done 2 days before the promised date, and I just love that. Good work. So that is it for me. Charter officers, city clerk, anything from you? No, city attorney?
Yes, ma'am. Today, I do have a couple of things. First, I just want to say thank you again for your comments and the increase today, and mostly thank you for recognizing the team. That is very meaningful to all of us to hear those comments. Secondly, Vice Mayor, the smoking ban will be on the November meeting, so that is. But third, I guess breaking news, during our meeting today, I received the order from the court in the de-annexation case regarding the writ for certiorari, and the court has denied petitioners writ for certiorari, meaning that the order is in the city's favor.
Wow. That's some great news.
I will send you all the order. It's 13 pages long. I didn't have a chance to read that while we were meeting today. I do want to point out the 3 findings the court made at the end of the order. She found 1, that the city afforded procedural due process to the parties in entering the final order. 2, the city observed the essential requirements of the law in entering the final order. And 3, the record contains competent, substantial evidence to support the city's decision to reject the petition based on sections 171.052 and 171.043 of the Florida statutes, and to support specific facts contained in its 2022 final order that form the basis of this decision. So this is a
best
significant
news.
order for the city. I do want to make sure to put it in context. The petitioners do still have an opportunity to file for a motion for rehearing or clarification and to file an appeal. And those deadlines will run in the next 15 and 30 days respectively. You know, we will see if there is continued action in this case, but this is definitely a significant order for the city. And I would like to extend the city's appreciation, a big thank you to the team at Bryant Miller Olive, and particularly our litigation counsel, Ellie Nyberger, and our former litigation counsel, Nikki Day, who have worked for a long time on this case.
Great
Thank you for that,
news.
city attorney.
Wow.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
Just wonderful.
That's
Great.
fabulous news.
It's about time. City manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just
So in
one
30 days
thing,
we have to-
as we, excuse me?
No, sorry.
Oh, the land development code that is currently underway with our staff, the conversation regarding the workshop and preparing for the workshop, we always talked about the capacity of the team and being able to do anything that would sort of disrupt that schedule. We want to make sure that the board understands that if we have the workshop and prepare for it, it could and probably will disrupt the schedule of the land development code process that we're in. If you guys are, if the board is okay with that, then that's what we would do, but we want to make sure that you're aware as we move forward and to pop up a surprise later down the line. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. That's it, Madam Mayor.
All righty. Well, it is 12:48, and I adjourn this meeting of the Northport City Commission.